Hello, and welcome to Signs of the Times. I'm Shira, and I'm a frequency catalyst here to support the evolution of the human race. I'm joined by my co-host George, who will share our vision for this radio show, coming up next.
Aloha, everyone. Our intention with Signs of the Times is to open a portal of conversation where way showers, light bringers, and life visionaries, catalysts for change in other words, can share their insights, wisdoms, and tools with listeners like you so that we may all collectively raise our frequencies and thus bring forward loving, powerful change and help a new earth spring forth. The time is now. Join us and discover how you can make a difference. Enjoy the show. Aloha and welcome back, everyone, to the second half of our conversation with Garret Sanford about his perceptions of where humanity stands in these somewhat chaotic days and how we as humanity can collectively shift into a more supportive, healthy and wholesome way of being on this beautiful planet we call home. We rejoin the discussion where the underlying topic is what someone recently termed toxic patriarchy.
I think the patriarchy, the male-dominated world, that's got to go. I mean, clearly it hasn't worked. And now is time for the divine feminine to really arise. And I think that we're seeing that. And even in this pandemic, I'm encouraged to seeing, you know, so many women coming into the forefront here. I mean, when the early stages of the pandemic, I mean, it was the female world leaders that were having the best success. Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, and Angela Merkel, and Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland. They brought their communities, like a good mother would do, is gathering her children around and protecting her family. So these were female leaders that were really having the greatest effect on this disaster. So I think, and what we're seeing now, I mean, with more and more women here in the United States that are running for Congress or running for Senate, and with Kamala Harris, I mean, hopefully a vice president, I think we're seeing this shift because the male-dominated paradigm is just not working anymore. And we need the upliftment and the tend and befriend nurturing of a female aura to move us forward.
I want to jump in here because it takes me back to something that I was going to bring up, where Shira mentioned about the gentleness that she felt from you, Garret. This is a personal thing for me, but this is going back to childhood. I always felt, the only word I can think of is unsafe around males. Now, where that came from, I'm not quite sure, but I'm very much aware that when I sense somebody who has a gentle demeanor, a male with a gentle demeanor, my whole dynamic around them shifts. And it's a place of trust, it's a place of faith, if you will. So when we talk about the way humanity's evolving now, my own personal sense is, yes, the patriarchy, this dogged, determined alpha male concept has got to go, by the way. We've tried it for thousands of years and it isn't working. But rather than swing the pendulum all completely the other way and make it all matriarchal, I'm looking to bring in the masculine energy that has humility, that has gentleness, because it's all part of it's part of the humanity anyway. We're all just minor isolations, male, female. If we can get male and female together in that gentle, nurturing space, that to me is the pathway forward.
I agree with you, George, and I don't think that with a pendulum, it's not going to swing all to the feminine, and suddenly it's everything is going to be feminine. I think like the Buddhists say, we have to find the middle path, and that's where we incorporate the best of both worlds into our vision of how we're going to move forward, because we do need the masculine along with the feminine. So I think it's finding a balance,
Yes.
and that middle path that's going to lead humanity forward.
Right. Right. And I think, just as we have spoken about the gentleness that a man can show, and in some ways that's really standing in his power, because that's the thing that we would tell them they shouldn't do. We've also seen that with women. We've seen women take on the masculine power in ways that has been very aggressive and hurtful and painful. You would never treat a child with the kind of venom that a woman can bring in her anger when she takes that masculine and distorts it. When we all have both, and in some ways, I agree with both of you that there has to be an integration, and rather than, maybe what's really happening is that we as a woman figure open our hearts to allow our men to portray their deepest feelings and emotions and still feel strong and valuable in our eyes, because we have not done that as a woman figure with our men. We have taught our men to show us their strong face. And so we have made them feel unsafe to be who they really are.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's like a patriarchal issue so much as it's a relationship issue with the way that we have raised our men too, that we have to take some responsibility for that. And I fully do, as the woman figure. I take full responsibility that I raised my boys saying big boys don't cry, and now I wish I'd never done that, because I didn't understand what I was teaching them and what I was helping them to cover up. And they know now how I feel, and I've come full face with them and told them what I wish I hadn't done. And I've opened a doorway for my boys to feel whatever they need to feel, and to validate them in that they are strong and viable in their sadness, in their fear, in whatever it is they're feeling. But I think when it comes to even things like our presidents and our vice presidents, that we have to be able to come together, man and woman, because we have a lot of men role that are being filled right now, but we have to bring them into a space of feeling safe to really speak what they're feeling inside.
Just one thing I want to add to that conversation, that earlier we were talking about different therapeutic models and methods, and where we talk about suppressing and repressing emotion, this to me is the source of a great deal of physical illness when it's done over a period of time. Well, that's exactly what we're telling men to do, is to suppress your emotions. Do not express them. You don't feel anything. Do as you're told. Be a good little soldier. You're setting humanity up collectively for illness and sickness. Look around.
And then cranio-sacral therapists have to bring you to still point so that you can release it.
George, I totally agree with you. And I mean, like, just in traditional Chinese medicine, the liver is the source of anger. Yes. And so that's the organ where people store their anger. And look how much liver disease we have in society. And so I think women are much more in touch with their emotions, and they just know how to express themselves, and to really sort of, if they feel like crying or being upset, they allow that to happen. But men, no, we're not allowed to do that. You have to hold it in and be tough. So the men that hold it in and be tough, there's clearly physical problems that come from that. So I think we have to really have a new definition of what masculine is.
Beautiful.
And maybe a new definition of, or expanded definition of, what feminine is, to bring into the masculine, and to show that it's always existed, and that women have always known. I mean, World War II, I mean, women went into the factories to take the jobs of men just to keep production going. So women are perfectly capable of doing that. But I think that the what is it, sort of the gender definitions need to be changed. And I think we're seeing that in the younger generation of men. I see new fathers that are just, they got the kids, they're on the metro, and 2 kids, one in a stroller, one in a backpack, and they're just handling things, and they've got the grocery bags. So men have stepped up to it, and I think, and the young fathers that I see, they're really given a chance to really enjoy their children, and it's something that I think I would have cherished if I had had that, but I'm another generation. But I see hope in that.
That's something we see here a lot in Hawaii. You get these big, huge Hawaiian guys, and there's a little kid just on the shoulder. I mean, the juxtaposition, the contrast, really? And they are just in heaven, the 2 of them, child and father.
Do you also see in the Hawaiian culture, in the Maoris, and there are, the Polynesians, there's a mix, there's quite a mix on the island, but these are big, powerful, physical, powerful men. And yet, from the time we've come to the island, we've noticed the way they hug, they kiss each other on the cheek. There's a gentleness with the masculine on the island that we never saw on the mainland. Mm-hmm. And there is an allowance of that for men on the island that I think is kind of a forerunner for what the planet needs to embrace. Now, in the contrast of that is they are very strong and physical, and some of the ancient trainings are powerful, masculine, in your face chants and literally almost yelling type and powerful movements. And this is to speak to the power of the masculine. But that's what I think, that the masculine is very powerful, and so is the woman, the feminine in its own right. But I think what's happened in our cultures is that we've turned that into force rather than power. It's been force. Like my father was a very angry Native American Indian, and he was very forceful. He was a powerful man, but his power came across as force and manipulation and control. And that, I think, is what we've done to poison the beauty of the masculine powder. And that's the piece that we have to learn how to re-embrace and bring that forward in a very loving way, because as you say, we need it. We need that.
I think one of my most wonderful, speaking to the power of the male and the female, I love the Maori and their Hakas. Yes. And to watch a Haka, to me, it's like, whoa, it's like all of this power.
Earth moving.
And women. And so that's the power. That's the power we all have. And I think that's a wonderful example and a wonderful display of just how powerful we really are.
Yeah. Beautiful. And that they move energy. Yes. They move energy with the Hakas. That's exactly what it's all about, is to bring forth and generate the creative force within us. Mm-hmm. And I think too, I'd love to have you speak to our ability as far as being creators, because I think that's another thing that people don't understand, that they are creating in every moment. And so I would love to hear your perspective on the human race as creators.
Well, I think there's a lot of research out there on how our thoughts are creative. And because we live in a quantum field, and it's just all energy, and it's all happening right at this very moment. There's not past or present, it's all here. So I think that we have to be mindful of our thoughts. I'm part of that is what we allow to come out of our mouths, how we communicate things, because our words have power, and they can destroy or uplift. And if we look at it as just an energy, and that, negative thoughts are, you keep thinking the same thing negatively, it's going to become embodied in the physical somehow, and it's going to create dis-ease. So I think, how we need to rear our children is to say, your words matter. I had a French teacher years ago, and she said, you must be a careful speaker. Again, it's just, you have to take some responsibility for what you say and just don't let any sort of crap come flying out of your mouth, because it's going to hit someone and they're going to take it in and maybe as truth, and then embody that, and then energetically embody that. So thoughts are things, and our voices and our speech can influence either positively or negatively. So I think it's very important to really watch what you say.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is an awareness of how much power we actually hold, which we're not raised in right now. And the other thing that we were talking about, the phrase that came up, was spiritual values, because I think a value of life is absent nowadays, which needs to be re-engendered, but also a spiritual value. The religion's kind of failed society as far as I'm concerned. We don't have anything to supplant it. It's been proven to be in some ways false because of the involvement of humanity in it. And that spiritual, that energetic awareness and training seems to me to be very sadly absent in current society. And I think that's one of the things we have to evolve back into.
I totally agree with that, George. Yes.
Yeah. And so a big piece of what you're speaking, Garret, that really kind of triggers some thoughts in me is the way we use our languaging. Again, patience was one thing for me. Another was speed. Very early, I learned that I had speed in my chart. I hold 2 state records for short distance running, as short as I am. So speed has always been a part of my life. And one of the biggest things that I had to learn when it came to that is when I trust spirit to speak through me, when I'm with clients, when I'm doing this kind of work, I will usually just open up and let the language come. But in my own personal life, I've had to learn to slow down before I speak. Because if the subconscious especially, and that's what I was going to speak to, is that when we speak, scientific proof now tells us that our thoughts, 85%, sometimes 85 to 90% of our thoughts are repetitive and have been with us probably most of our life. And so our responses oftentimes are based on what is here in our unconscious, our subconscious mind. And when we are in that space and just responding and not slowing down to what you were speaking to earlier, having discernment and literally asking a question about what we are going to say rather than just letting it spit out of us, then the creative process, like for a lot of people, they say, I can't get this, I can't get that. And I ask, well, what are you getting? And they say, oh, I get this and this. And we have to go in and recognize, okay, what frequency are we running? What repetitive thought do we have that is causing this to come into our world over and over and over again? Why are we stuck in this space? Because the thought, the energy that we are projecting, whether we say it out loud or not, the thought is, this is normal, this is what I got. And so it is. You know? And so this whole thing that you're speaking about, I think is so powerful that we discern first, and then we speak with a conscious answer. And that will change our world if we are able to do that.
What is it they say down south? Think fast, talk slow?
Is that what they say?
Something like that.
I'm not sure. I didn't know that one. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think it goes back to what we were speaking of earlier about looking for an answer and going within. I remember so many times whenever I was working for this agency and counseling people, health counseling, and they would be given like an hour one-on-one counseling session with me. And oftentimes I would be sitting there letting them talk and trying to figure out what was the intervention. And I'm just like, I don't know what I'm going to say to this person. And what I found, and it was this, and I'd look at the clock and it was like, I've only got 5 more minutes left with this client. And inevitably, and this happens so many times, it's like I said internally to myself, it's like, what am I supposed to say here? What's the intervention? And that very moment when I surrendered my ego the answer came, and it would be coming flying out of my mouth before I even engaged my brain, and it was the absolute perfect thing for that client at that moment.
Yes. Beautiful.
But again, it was, I don't have the answers. My ego doesn't have the answers. There is help there. There's divine help. There's guidance. Ask.
Yes.
Ask.
Beautiful. And in that moment, through your expression, you opened a portal for them to understand, letting it come from within. They might not have known that intellectually, they might not have gotten that on the surface, but somewhere in the energy field connection that you had with them, you opened a portal of understanding because you portrayed that frequency in the moment. I can hear in your voice, because this has happened to me too. It's like the minute it comes out of your mouth, you go, wow, that's really good information. It's like inside. Yeah, that has happened to me. And I'm just like, yes, thank you. You know, it's like, because like you said, when the ego gets out of the way, when you stop trying to fix anything and you just trust that you're here to support this person, you're here from a place of love and acceptance. How can I be of service? The service comes. The service comes.
We're talking faith again. Huh?
And then the correct response from me is gratitude. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the wisdom that I'm able to pass on.
Exactly. Exactly.
Pretty simple.
Uh-huh. And I always have those moments when I am kind of closing my session with someone. I always have those moments where I validate them in what they've brought today so that we could come together. And like you said, there's all this incredible gratitude that I was given an opportunity to handhold in this situation in a way that we found answers together, that I was able to be present for what they were bringing up that they needed to hear. And so I think, and every single person on the planet, Garret, has something to offer. I truly believe that. And so my goal is to hold them safely enough that they can do that, that they can find their wisdom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what would you say to someone who says, well, I try to do that, but I never hear an answer. I never hear anything.
You quoted my script.
Well, I think I probably would say is you have a very strong ego that pretty much has dominated your life as far as making the decisions for you. But there is another way to conduct your life. And it'll provide you a way to walk through the world with ease and grace, is if you just really begin to cultivate an interior practice. You know, oh, I've tried that. I've tried meditation. I've tried yoga and things like that. Well, you know, meditation isn't for everyone, but I tell my clients, you know, like meditation should be a very personal thing. I've never really gravitated to Zen Buddhism. It's too strict for me. And I mean, I would always be trying to make sure that I was sitting straight and all this and losing the fact of the meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell my clients, meditation has to be very personal. Whatever it is, you know, in the Christian tradition, it's contemplation. So if that's just sitting quietly with maybe a candle burning and just closing your eyes and just allowing whatever to come and go, focus on your breath or not. I mean, it has to be a personal practice, and you can train yourself to do this. Yeah. But of course, you know, I mean, Americans want everything now. I want the answer now. And I don't want to have to work. I just want the results. Well, that doesn't work. Yeah. But if you're willing to make the investment in yourself, you will find a new way to access information.
Yeah. Beautiful. I often will ask people, because what you just said is so powerful, Garret. We live in the world of immediate gratification. And I always ask people, so once you get what you want, then what? Well, then there's this next thing. You know, it's like as soon as we get what we want for something else. We immediately, and then I will ask, and how does that serve your true satisfaction, your deep satisfaction. Well, it doesn't. Thank you. And yet what you're asking me for is to be able to feel a calm, quiet peace within, a peace of mind, a calmness of your mind that doesn't come from wanting anything. And so we have to look at what is our life? What have we determined our life is? Getting on to the next thing, getting the next thing, wanting something new. And if we can understand that it doesn't matter how much we get, it truly doesn't matter. We can have it all. And if we live from that perspective, we will want something else. And so if peace of mind is really what you are aspiring to, or if a feeling of safety within is what you are aspiring to, then we have to change our perspective of what our life actually is. And as you say, make a commitment to something greater than the next item we can buy. And oftentimes what happens for me when somebody says they can't hear anything, they don't get anything, my answer is bring it to the body. So here is that thought. Here is that question that you have. Where do you feel it in your body? I want you right now to just close your eyes, have the thought, and tell me, where do you feel it in your body? And then oftentimes, because they're frustrated with not having an answer, they'll get directed. Oh, I feel it in my chest. I feel it in my gut. You know, it's something that is about a nurturing aspect. Oftentimes when we go to our gut, or it's something about a power thing, whenever our gut, I mean, we go to our power. In our heart, it's more of a nurturing thing. As soon as I can get someone to feel this question, then they have a different avenue to go. They can get out of their mind and they can begin to focus somewhere else than the mind, so that they are starting to contact who they really are. Because we think we are our mind, but we are the spirit that animates the mind and the body. And when we understand that we are the spirit, not this physical thing, then suddenly we're playing in a whole different ballgame. And that's really, I think, what people are seeking, is to know who they truly are, which has really not a lot to do with the physical, except that this is how we experience it. You know, we got to have the physical to experience it.
And I agree with you. And again, going back to what you said, was that we're always future thinking. This is what I want, that something in the future. It's always going out into the future. And we're not taught this. So everyone has to find it on their own, is to how to be present in the moment. Because again, we're in a quantum field and all we have is the present moment. There's nothing else but the present moment. And I think that if somebody can really sort of look at what their motivation is for wanting something out there and sort of to bring it into present time and really do some self-inquiry as far as like, well, why do I want those new pair of tennis shoes? Do I really need them? And then you begin to sort of whittle it down, is to say, well, what's my motivation behind this? Is it keeping up with my friend who just bought a pair? Or do I really need it? Am I contributing to more ecological trash by getting another pair that I really don't need because I have a very good pair already? And so it's like, it brings up other questions. And then you begin saying, no, wait a minute, what are my motivations for doing all of this? And it's not just for a pair of shoes. It's like, do I really want to eat something that's really not healthy for me? Or would it be better if I maybe just, had a nice piece of fish? So it's all a huge process of coming into present time and really learning about yourself by going internally and not looking outside for answers, and not looking on your social media for the answers to what you really want.
Garret, I have a question. My observation over the last few years is that there's been an energetic impelling, if you will, for simplicity, to simplify our lives, to reduce the amount of stuff that we've got. I remember I was showing Shira, there was a skit by George Carlin about stuff. And one of the things he said there is, your house is just a cover for all your stuff. If you didn't have so much stuff, you wouldn't need a house. And it struck me as there's a lot of wisdom in that. And we've found over the last few years, simplify, simplify, simplify. I've never been a great shopper, per se, but I know nowadays less and less and less, the call to bring more stuff into the living space is greatly reduced.
George, I had a mentor for many, many years, and she died when she was 95. And it was such a blessing to be able to watch her age and take notes as to whenever I'm aging now. And so remembering back and how she gracefully walked through all of that. But she never gave me any, you have to do this, any direction. She just always said, you might want to try. But one thing she always said to me was, keep it simple. And she was in AA for 49 years, and that was her spiritual foundation. And that's one of the principles in AA or any of the recovery programs, is keeping it simple. Mm-hmm. And that was the best advice that she's ever given to me. And it's like, simplify, simplify, simplify. And in this time, what we're going through right now, that is one way to bring peace into your life. If you can simplify things, get rid of things that don't serve you anymore, get them out of the way, it's less clutter, and you begin to see things more clearly. And that in itself, and my teacher in Melbourne always reminds me, she said, make peace your priority during this time. And by simplifying your life and making peace your priority, and that can be whatever brings you peace, these are really good tools in which to survive all of this chaos that's in the world.
I remember Wayne Dyer used to say about any disagreement, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
That's right out of A Course in Miracles. That's one of the questions.
Yes.
Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yes. Yes. And I'd like to just open a moment of breathing for anyone listening to the show right now, to breathe in the magnificence of make peace your priority. I just think that is so powerful, Garret. And so many times we hear wisdoms. And I think this is one of the pieces that it's kind of jumped out at me every time that you've brought it on this show, is that you'll say, no, I had this teacher, or I had this, person in my life, this one simple wisdom that they gave you. If everyone who's listening to this show could take a few moments this evening, sit down with a paper and pencil and write down the powerful wisdoms that they remember that somebody in their life touched them with in some way, shape, or form. Because you bring those so easy, so readily. It's obvious to me that you walk your talk, because that's when these things come back to us. Our wisdoms keep repeating themselves to us because you walk your talk. If you don't, you have to dig those up out of the past and reread them and remind yourself, oh yeah, that was a good one, And so I hope that all the beautiful wisdoms that you've brought today, that anybody who has listened to this show, if they didn't write them down when you were saying them, that they go back and re-listen and they trigger for themselves the value of each of these, as you were saying a few minutes ago, simpler aspects of life. These simple wisdoms hold magnificent power for us if we will just align with them, attune to them, and use them in our lives. And so I'm so grateful for these beautiful pieces that you have brought forward today. It's just heart-opening for me, and I know that it's going to speak to our listeners in so many powerful ways. So I'd like to kind of recap a few of the things that you've spoke about. One is the cycles on the planet, that we are in the cycle. And for anyone who's not familiar with, you spoke to some very long cycles, some shorter cycles. There are many, many of them. There is Gaia TV, if people are not familiar with that. Greg Braden has a series that speaks about the cycles of this planet. And some of the things that he brought forward were just captivating to me, because I, like you, have done a lot of research on the cycles, but Greg Braden has gone in deep depth around them through ice cores and things like that. He speaks to many, many things. And I think there's great wisdom in understanding that we're in a cycle. And thank you for bringing that forward so that we can all make a decision. Who do we want to be in this moment, in this cycle? One of the other pieces that you brought forward that is so powerful is that we only have this moment. It is all happening right now. And that is huge for us, because so many of us, as you said, are living in the future. What's going to happen next? And many people live in the past, being angry about what occurred before. And as you said, we only have right now. The fact that we are a global community, I just think that's another really beautiful piece that you spoke to today, that this global community aspect is now giving us an opportunity to really see everyone's differences. And in my heart, that's the opportunity to have acceptance of it all, is to find the love of everyone within our differences. You also spoke to discernment, which I think is a huge one for us, of being in the moment and having a discerning thought rather than being carried off in the mass mind, media, our cultural norms that have poisoned us to looking outside of ourselves. One of the most valuable pieces that you bring forward is to go within, to go within. And I know that years ago I had a mantra. I go through my life picking up little mantras, show me the truth of this, or show me my truth in this, or just help me see this clearly. And for me, the mantra of go within, I probably spent a year with that mantra when I was completely alone, had no partners in my life, and I just honed, go within, go within. Boy, every time it got tough, go within, go within. And that is such a powerful, beautiful guidance for us in this time of change and expansion. I really think we are in a time of expansion. And if we don't come into the moment and clarify a discerning answer for ourselves, we will be part of the problem. We will escalate the energies of chaos. I just feel like that is huge, powerful stuff. Simplify. That's another very beautiful piece. You have brought forth so many incredible things. I wanted to recap, because what I wanted to do after recapping some of these powerful things was to open the floor for you again to maybe bring forth anything that we didn't speak to, or that is on your heart, or anything that you would like to share that you think is powerful, to just talk to it, anything that you want to bring forward.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I mean, I have enjoyed this dialogue very much. I think you two are wonderful, and the service that you are giving to humanity is amazing, and I am happy to participate. It's an honor for me. Thank you. I think, and I tell this to my clients, especially if they're going to try to become more self-aware or go listen more to their internal dialogue, and I try to really encourage people that this is a practice. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It certainly didn't happen overnight in my life. I mean, I'm still learning. I still have teachers. And I never want to stop that. I will never know all of the information, at least in this body. I mean, there's other wisdom there that I just can't access, at this point. But so to sort of lighten up on yourself, I mean, it's like, all right, you make a decision that I'm going to try some of these new things, just even to listen more internally to myself and to ask for guidance. But it's a practice. The more that you do it, it's just like working out at the gym, the stronger you'll get if you just are diligent in doing it. So just don't throw it out the window if it doesn't work after a couple of times. So I think that's really important, and to just lighten up on yourself. This is an incredibly difficult planet to have an incarnation on. I mean, it's just dichotomy. It's left, right, up, down, black, white. You know, there's just no gray area in there. You have to find the gray area in which to sort of navigate your life. But everyone has their own path. And it's unfair to yourself if you judge yourself against somebody else's path, because I mean, you're just going to be frustrated and you're going to throw it out, and you're going to be back to square one of being frustrated. So I think if you have a light touch with it, and just say, I'm going to try this, and not condemn yourself, because that's what the world wants to do. It's like, oh, you screwed up. You can't do this right. You know, so it's just a practice, and it's a process, and you will get there. And again, the simplicity, finding peace. I know this about a couple months ago. It seems like sort of like everything was overwhelming, and I couldn't get peaceful. And I happened to just run across a reference to Mary Oliver. She's an American poet. She lived in Provincetown. It was a collection. She died, I think, 2 years ago or a year ago. And it was a collection of her poetry that she curated prior to her death. So it's like the best of the best. And I ordered the book and I got it. Just reading a couple of pages, it just brings you down. She was so in tune with nature. And it's a reminder of just who we really are and the preciousness of who we are. And that we can get in touch with that, but you just have to get still. Just get quiet in order to hear what the universe is trying to teach you. So, I mean, her book, it's called Devotions. It's just an amazing, amazing book.
Would I be right in quoting the line, "What will you do with your one wild ride through life"?
Yes.
Thank you.
On this planet.
This planet, right? And thank you for your integrity, Garret, around having a period of time where you just couldn't seem to come inside, you couldn't seem to get still. I think that, so many times people think, well, you've been on the spiritual journey for so long, nothing bothers you. Well, we are human. And things get us every now and then. And like you were speaking to, realigning into that parasympathetic space with the cranio-sacral, when we are out of that space, this is what happens to us. Things come at us, or we grasp onto things instead of deep breath and let it move through and come to the next thing. That can happen to any of us. And so thank you for bringing that piece. And I'd like to say one thing to that, is that you were saying everybody has their own path. For my experience with clients is that many people are afraid to have their own path, because the teaching is to follow the teacher, follow the leader, have somebody that you look to the answer for. And what I would like to invite people to know is that the power that they are seeking with the answers that they need lies within them. They are what they seek. And the minute that they are able to embrace that, then there is excitement in finding your own path. not fear. And so I would invite people to embrace it from that perspective, because that's such a powerful piece. And around asking for guidance. Did you want to say something? Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Finish up what you're going to say. There was something that came up around the practice, but
Okay.
I'm going to throw this into the two of you.
One of the things that I often will tell my clients, because you said, ask for the guidance and no, you can do this. It will come. You will get it. Many times when people tell me that they can't hear it, and I'll just say, listen, when you lay down to sleep at night, right as you're really starting to feel kind of foggy and tired, ask them. Say, I'm open for spiritual guidance. Help me. Show me. And if you do that as you are falling asleep, you begin to open that little trap door to the unconscious, which comes in as you are falling asleep into the theta brainwave state. You are accessing that space. If you bring that into that space, you will start to unravel some of the blockages of not being able to have the guidance.
So we were talking about it's a practice that everybody is constantly working on themselves. I have a very good friend within that space called ego sabotage. Now, you guys probably don't know a damn thing about that, but you've doubtless heard about it. I just wonder what your advice is to deal with it.
Yes, I've had that situation many times in my life. So ego sabotage. Again, I think if one's ego is trying to drive you in a certain direction, again, it's that taking that step back, becoming really present in present time. And again, going in and just saying, I don't know the answer to this, so I need some guidance. And it will come, but and again, I go back to a sort of a litmus test from A Course in Miracles. It says, and you can apply this to anything. If it's what do I want for dinner tonight, or do I want to go to a movie, or whatever. It's like, am I doing this out of love, or am I doing it out of fear? It cuts right to the chase.
Beautiful.
And so if you honestly answer yourself, well, I'm afraid of what somebody else is going to think about me, or if I don't go with them, whatever, then you're doing it out of fear, and it's not in your highest good. But if you're doing it out of love, then it's going to work out. And that teaching to me, I've held for many, many years, and I've applied it many times. Am I doing this out of fear? And oftentimes we do. We do. We make a lot of decisions, and they haven't served us.
It's powerful. Yeah. This is Anita Morjani, Dying to Be Me. And she ate for many years. She was so diligent to eat certain ways. She was afraid if she didn't, she'd get cancer. She ate out of the fear and ended up with lymphoma that did take her life. And then she came back. She was dying in the hospital with lemon-sized nodules all over her body. And then she came back after speaking with her father, going to the other side, and she came back. And within a couple of weeks, the cancer was completely gone out of her body. It was an incredible story. But the fear is what was driving her. And she came back to tell people to live life fearlessly, to let the fear go and to live in love, live in joy.
And she has a new book coming out early next year, and the title of which is Sensitive is the New Strong. That one speaks so deeply in here.
Yes, great title.
Okay, so I think we're going to bring this show to a close.
We had better, otherwise we're going to be in the third hour.
Okay.
The witching hour.
I'm telling you, Garret, you just have so many beautiful, valuable things to bring, and we're so blessed, so grateful to have had you on the show today and for sharing all that you had to share with us. And if you have anywhere for people to contact you or to connect with you, if they'd like to do work with you, if you want to give that information here on the show, we're happy for you to do that.
Yes. Thank you. First of all, it is really, truly an honor to be with you today, and thank you for inviting me. My website is awakeningstillness.com, all run together. And there's just a real brief story about that, the name. My web designer said to me, "You're going to have to come up with a name for your website." And I said, "Oh, I don't know," and all that. And again, this is sort of demonstrates the power of asking. I sat down in meditation and I just said, "What am I supposed to call my website?" And immediately it came Awakening Stillness. And it's sort of it's an oxymoron, if you will, but it's really, that's what the work is all about, is awakening that stillness in you so that you can heal, so that you can have a more fulfilling life, so that you can get the answers that you really need.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. And that makes it easy for everyone to find you. So thank you again. And hopefully, people will go there. Do you have like teaching tools or anything on your website? Things that people can read, things that people can learn from?
A couple of years ago, I did a couple of blogs on like fear and stress. And so there's a couple of things on there. It's a pretty extensive website, and it explains sort of my philosophy and what cranio-sacral therapy does. So people can get some good information on there, I think. And there's contact information there, my email address and a phone number.
And for cranio-sacral sessions, Garret, what area are you located in?
I'm located in San Francisco, California.
Perfect, thank you. All right, then we are going to say goodbye for now, and may you be blessed. So much gratitude.
Thank you.
Thank you, Garret.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Happy day. Aloha.